Good evening, Internet, and welcome to Top Shift number 97. Now, one of the things that's been happening in 2.4 is that we've been getting a whole load of new background and lore that's coming through in dribs and drabs by people discovering old I.N.R.A bases. Now, I.N.R.A, or the Intergalactic Naval Reserve Arm, was left over from the original game, which was basically the response against the Thargoids. Now, as you know, all the lore has been completely, well, not completely rewritten, but retconned quite a lot for Elite Dangerous. So what we know from previous games doesn't really count anymore. Now, this is the first I.N.R.A base that was discovered, and I'm going to just take the SRB around it just to scan the logs, because they are well worth actually seeking out, and just for the atmosphere. And also you do get at least, I think, 100,000 credits per base scanned, which is always helpful. So you join me in the Sanctimonious and in the Tron buggy, and as I drive around this whole base. Now, you can see here, I mean, I love the textures that they've put on this. It's obviously well worn, it's not occupied anymore, and there's tons and tons of this stuff, actual materials which we could use for other engineering purposes. Now, those materials always useful to take a note of and come back to. And of course, each of them has got a data point. If you can scan the data point, then hey presto, you manage to get the base tagged, and you can come back to it at any time. This is one thing that I do like that they've done with Elite, is that once you found a point of interest, you scan it, and if you run with 1,000 light seconds, you get it back.
We received a very exciting delivery today. Pieces of recovered Thargoid technology, even fragments of spacecraft. Most of the samples are damaged, but we should still be able to put them to good use. Thargoid technology is, in many respects, far more advanced than our own. Understanding it could open up all kinds of possibilities and rapidly accelerate our own development. Space travel, energy, weapons, even medicine. The applications are potentially limitless. I suspect there's a key discovery to be made, one that will open up the aliens' technology to us. Who knows? Perhaps I'll be the one to make it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. There's lots of work to be done before we can start popping champagne corks. I've given the research teams their assignments. Let's see what they can find out.
Now, when I.N.R.A was initially set up, everybody wanted to join because it was a big one thing for humanity.
Progress is slow, and much of what we knew about the Thargoids, or thought we knew, has had to be revised. But I suppose that's to be expected. We now have 12 active research projects focusing on a number of different areas. I find myself growing impatient with some of my colleagues. But that's the problem with being a perfectionist. I set high standards for myself, and I expect others to do the same. Phase 3 has been a failure. I sincerely believed we were making progress, but just because something works in theory does not mean it will work in practice. There have also been issues with the junior researchers. Some of them think they're being monitored, and one actually believes she's being held here against her will. Of course, those who have worked in this sector before know this is not the case. Naturally, our employers keep an eye on us. The work we're doing is extremely sensitive. We're researching alien technology, after all. It's a question of security. Some people can find a conspiracy in anything. Our employers have become preoccupied with one of the research projects. Although I've repeatedly told them it's a dead end. It isn't even an official project. It's just something that one of the junior researchers cooked up in his spare time. He's a specialist in agricultural science, trying to wipe out famine or something. Apparently, he's created a biological agent that incapacitates the alien technology. Here we are, devoting millions of credits and countless hours to understanding this technology, and he's trying to destroy it. If it were up to me, I'd cut him from the project entirely. But our employers seem to think his work has merit.
So there you have it, the first initial contact with an I.N.R.A base. Now, one of the things that did happen was that Frontier put out a whole load of CGs lately, one of which was to sample Thargoids, which is what I'm going to show you how to do next. There was a bit of difficulty with the CG due to bugs and also technique. So here we are, I'm just dropping in on the Thargoid. Now, this is about the 5th or 6th time I've tried this, until someone pointed out I was doing it all wrong and I was going in all guns blazing. You've got to be sneaky. Now, where is he? Where is he? There he is. Now, I'm not carrying anything that will anger a Thargoid. So he's happy now, but when I launch the limpet, he won't be. There you go. As soon as he detects the limpet, he's angry, and there goes the Thargoids. Now, Mark Allen did a fantastic job explaining how they all worked in a live stream a couple of weeks ago, and to tell you the truth, it scared the bejesus out of me and made me feel very thick. But as you can see here, I've gone into silent running. Now, when you go into silent running, that means you have to use heat sinks just to keep down. Now, if you keep in silent running and about 1 kilometer away from him, it's absolutely fine. He will not take any notice of you, and you can sample away. The problem is, of course, is that sometimes he's a little bit too fast and will get away, finish scanning what's there, and disappear before the limpet's finished. Now, now the CG had a few problems. That the limpets didn't work sometimes, and I'll just regenerate a new heatsink for myself. The heatsinks the limpets didn't pull back stuff all the time, and there was an element of you had to work this out, which was, I think, difficult for some people in the community, because it felt a bit get good, if you see what I mean. But it was nice that there was an alternative playstyle, that I didn't have to go shooting down Thargoids, because due to time constraints, I don't have time to, to wing up. And I'm coming in too fast here. This is the problem, because if you misjudge it just slightly, you will lose your sample. And there we go, lost it. I did manage to put in a meaningful contribution to the CG, but I think the levels were set too high, which was a bit of a shame. Well, this is I.N.R.A base number 2. Now, as you can see, we've managed to find out that someone has managed to make a breakthrough with the Thargoids. And each of these bases are, all located on deserted planets. How they were discovered is mostly due to a combination of decoding listening sites and comm beacons, which have been scattered around and suddenly started appearing, which of course means decoding and going outside the game. But Canon research have been very good, and there is a massive I.N.R.A thread on the forums where people just swap ideas. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of brute forcing the planets which are involved, but I think that's part of the course. People have worked out a technique. I'm not quite so sure whether or not I like it or not, but what they do is they watch the FPS counter, and if the FPS counter suddenly crashes, it means that you know, it drops from about 100 to about 30, they know that there's something locally. And normally what they do at that point is they'll drop their graphic detail right down to the lowest setting and look for anomalies on the planet. Now some people say that this is just like, you know, reconfiguring your scanners to do to search for things on a planet. That's what their in-lore explanation could be. Personally, I do wish that Frontier made it a little bit easier. Now this is of course how you tag a base, so now I have now 30 seconds to find where the other data point is. There it is. So if I quickly give this a scan, that's me got all the details I need to for the planet, and I can come back here at any time. Because it'll be logged in the computer. There we go. Unfortunately my data storage is quite full at the moment, so I've got to sort something out with that. So yeah, I mean, the Thargoid CG and the Thargoid storyline doesn't seem to be progressing as fast as some people are wanting. I mean, personally I do like the slow burn, but just occasionally you just wish they'd up the ante a little bit. It still feels, even though we're sort of like 2-3 weeks from Christmas, things are not building at a pace that I would have hoped for. But still, I mean, this new kind of gameplay is always appreciated. And a very good distraction from the rest of it. I think the problem with the CG was that there was a lot of people who weren't in the Pleiades were felt excluded. Now, Frontier have got a bit of a balance to do here, because if they've got the CGs in question, the previous Aegis CGs involved a lot of trading goods, which everybody could get involved with. Just getting the Thargoid samples or taking down Thargoids themselves, well, that involves, well, first of all knowing what you were doing, which was difficult, as you've seen, and secondly, there is a perception that taking out a Thargoid these days is something only the best of the best of the best can do. Personally, I don't think so. I've managed to get in a reasonably small wing, and I've taken down one Thargoid already, which unfortunately I wasn't able to record, mostly because I've had problems with OBS lately. But I will say it was quite a fun experience, and we didn't need to be over-engineered. We were taking out a Cyclops, not a Basilisk. I think the Basilisk is beyond my ability at the moment, but a Cyclops in a wing, I would recommend everybody give it a try, as long as you've got the AX weapons. I think even, say, a wing of, I don't know, Asp Explorers could actually take one down. But still, we're waiting for the next shoe to drop at the moment, so I'm going through all of the I.N.R.A bases and filling out the plot holes, really. I mean, it's quite interesting seeing what I know from Frontier First Encounters come through into this, because what was originally slated was that Frontier said that they wanted people to think that what happened in the previous games was kind of hearsay, urban legend. And what they're happening now is we're now finding out what the truth is behind the urban legend. So, whatever you knew in Frontier First Encounters, or Frontier, doesn't count. Which is, but it kind of gives tantalising hints. Oh, I really shouldn't shoot them. I do apologise for that. But I must admit, in all these cases, the voice acting and the atmosphere of these bases is superb. And I would recommend anybody come out, have a look. It's probably better to experience it yourself than just watch it on a YouTube channel, which is ironic, of course, because I'm putting it out on a YouTube channel. So I've got to give a shout out to Axel Grease and Nemesis, I want to say yes, who were my wingmen when taking out that Thargoid. It was an absolute laugh. Even though my Ferdinand's got absolutely wasted, I think I docked with 4% left on my hull, thanks to caustic damage. But it certainly got the blood pumping, I'll tell you that. So I wouldn't say that the Thargoid storyline is a complete and utter waste so far. I think we're still up in the building phases, and it still feels very, very XCOM Interceptor to me at the moment, where we don't have access to to decide what the research priority is. We at the moment are just the pilots, but we're not in charge of the whole strategy, which I don't know. I think I'm missing a little bit. Although in a big multiplayer MMO, I don't know how you could actually implement that. As much as I'd love it. I mean, maybe you could run CGs, which would mean, right, whichever CG gets the most stuff is the item you get next. And it'll be a choice of the community to decide, okay, do we want the scanner first, or do we want the bigger gun? It's just, I don't know. It's difficult to see how they could implement this. Although one thing I would like to see the Aegis missions include stuff like, can you go scoopers or sample three Thargoid samples and things like that. That would be helpful to try and pull people in.
I don't have long. Once they realize I'm gone and the data's been copied, they'll send their attack dogs after me. I know they will. But someone needs to show the galaxy what the I.N.R.A really is. What it's doing. What it's hiding.
So I.N.R.A started off as a... Hang on.
I'm sorry for the part I've played in this. Truly. I was a researcher at a facility in the Hermitage 4A system exploring agricultural applications of Thargoid-derived technology. The lab was owned by the I.N.R.A. Publicly, the I.N.R.A likes to emphasize the whole altruistic cooperative thing, but in recent years it's become much more focused on weapons testing and manufacture. Believe me, it's a military contractor in all but name. The nature of my field was the study of disease-resistant crops, mycoproteins, that sort of thing. I was getting good results, even if my superiors took no notice. Then everything changed. I was running a bunch of control experiments, just trying a few things out, really. It was an afterthought. It wasn't even related to the main body of my work. The results were interesting. I didn't think they were particularly significant, but something made me take it directly to one of the I.N.R.A guys. I didn't want to go to Dr. Prince. She'd always been pretty dismissive of my work. I would give anything to be able to undo that decision. Anything. All my equipment and samples were whisked off to some remote facility. Later I found out I'd been taken to a weapons testing site in the I.N.R.A A2AA system.
Guess that's
my
what we're off next.
research was used as the basis of a new superweapon designed to destroy the Thargoids. I heard they experimented on live captives. I doubt any of it was strictly legal. It certainly wasn't ethical. To the public, the I.N.R.A is a symbol of all that is possible when superpowers set aside the differences and work together. Well, it might have started off like that, but it's something very different now. Progress at any cost. Might makes right. All our worst impulses channeled into an unaccountable organization focused solely on making bigger and more powerful weapons. Bigger and more powerful weapons. God. if you find this, if someone finds this, make sure it gets out. Please. It's time people knew the truth.
So there you have it. INRA is not the good guys that they made out to be. So we're going to leave it there, and I will carry on with this at a later point. If you, of course, like what I'm doing here, please like and subscribe down below. And for the moment, thank you very much, and good night.